Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. I'm Nidhi Razdan. On the program tonight, we're going to be looking at the Modi legacy. It's been quite an election. This campaign finally over. And when all the votes are cast, what have the people of India based their decision on? Is it the economy, is it jobs, national security, or just Narendra Modi? Mr. Modi's personality has undoubtedly loomed large over this election. Many believe this has simply been a referendum on him. But has it? What is Mr. Modi's legacy of the last 5 years, and will that be enough to get him re-elected? Is Narendra Modi the strong leader who has made India safer and put us on a path to economic reform, or has he set India on a destructive path with his muscular religious nationalism, the economy in trouble, threats from Pakistan still unabated, and a badly divided people? Is Narendra Modi the great unifier that he and the BJP would like us to believe, or is he, like that now infamous Time magazine cover said, India's divider-in-chief? Well, we've got a terrific panel joining us on The Big Fight today, and as always, we will begin with opening comments from all our panelists that will last for exactly 1 minute. I will begin with activist and writer Farhan Naqvi. Is Modi a unifier or a divider? Farhan Naqvi.
Mr. Modi is exactly who he was. Perceptions about him have changed in the last 4 years. There were those who were desperate to believe that the leopard would change its spots. It did not. He's been remarkably consistent in his politics, and for those who don't want to go back as far back as 2002, please go back to June 2014, his first speech before the Lok Sabha, in which he spoke about 1200 saal ki gulami. He spoke about 1200 years of servitude, when all we have learnt in India growing up in this country was 200 years of British rule. His signalling of his politics was completely clear. He was intending to target Muslims for the entire duration of his prime ministership, and he indeed has loved jihad, cow vigilantism, Ram Mandir, Qabristan, Pakistan. Pragya Thakur being the latest, and her remarks about Gandhiji being absolutely unforgivable in this hate politics. I want to say that commentators who respond to this with bewilderment really ought not to be. You know, right-wing populism of this sort does not just emerge.
All right, time's up, Farhan Naqvi. Yeah. You get a chance to expand on your points. We have Rajat Sethi, who is with the India Foundation, also advisor to the Manipur Chief Minister. Rajat Sethi, unifier or divider?
Well, if you go by the term unifier and divider and the bipolarity of it, I would say that who can be a bigger unifier than Prime Minister Modi? He seems to have united such political factions who would have never come together. They've cut across all ideological lines. They have forgotten about what they stood for. If you see UP, for that matter, SP, BSP coming, you see in the south, in Andhra, in Telangana, what kind of cobbling up of alliances happened just to stop one man. So in the term of, in the true sense of dividing and uniting, he has put together all of the people who have been against the India's interest, against people who have risen from the ground and have risen up the ladder through the sheer hard work, people who have always felt entitled to the seat of power. He has united all of them. So in my view, Prime Minister Modi, who's been consistent for the past 5 years, ensured that there is good governance, ensured that there is no organized riots happening anywhere in the country.
All right, Rajat Sethi, you get a chance to talk more about that later. National spokesperson of the Congress, Pawan Khera, you're next.
Nidhi, we have a history where communities do have a historical baggage. We are an ancient civilization. We have baggages. There are fault lines. But 1947 onwards, we created a constitution. We set our goals, national goals, and decided to move on together. Mr. Modi comes and reminds us of all those fault lines. From 47 onwards, whoever the rulers were of this country, they decided to govern despite the fault lines. Here is a man who governs, who depends on the fault lines for his politics, who depends on the fault lines for the governance also. Now, you divide gods, you divide freedom fighters, Nehru versus Patel versus Netaji. What kind of a narrative is this? And now, when you go to Bengal, you say Purvanchal versus Bengal. Wherever Mr. Modi goes, he himself talks in a divisive language, Shamshan versus Qabristan. Gods, rivers, everything. It's a golden touch. The moment you touch something, you divide.
For opening comments from Yogendra Yadav, President of Swaraj India. Yogendra Yadav, where do you stand on Mr. Modi?
We don't frankly need a Time magazine to tell us that he is a divider. Divider not merely in the sense of Hindu-Muslim. You really don't need to give evidence for that. It's all over in a way which is so low that this country had never imagined. But I think we also need to pay attention to the fact that he divides at a deeper level, not just the present, also the past, not just on lines of Hindu-Muslim, for which I don't need to even adduce any evidence, but on caste line. Remember, his caste and exact caste configuration keeps changing. His own placement in caste hierarchy keeps changing. Also remember, here is a prime minister, unifier, nationalist, who didn't speak one word on Punjab-Haryana water dispute, Karnataka-Tamil Nadu dispute. So in regional terms as well, a divider. In one respect, I hope he would be a unifier. We Indians have never had to fight for democracy. I really hope he would unite Indians who want to fight for democracy, and this Godse versus Gandhi could become a future debate.
Shantanu Gupta is here with us today. He's a political analyst and author of a biography on Chief Minister Adityanath of UP. Shantanu.
Nidhi, first of all, I'm not very comfortable with these binary questions, unifier or a divider. I think we took a cue from Time magazine and now we are pushing it to our TV studios. See, after many years and many decades, we have a person who have a clear political popularity, which we have seen in 5 years, right? What unites a country? A strong country, and where the governance is strong, that unites a country. And that what he has delivered in last 5 years. Be it the borders or be the implementation of slogans like Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. When I'm making a road, it's for everyone. When I'm supplying electricity, it's for everyone. When I'm making toilets, houses. So from Rajiv Gandhi, where 1 rupee, from 1 rupee traveling and 15 paisa reaching, now the government schemes are reaching, and well-fed people, people who are engaged in economic activity will make a strong India, united India.
All right, well, you stuck to your time. Sadanand Dhume is with us today. He's, of course, a columnist and writer. Your time starts now.
It just depends on which cleavage you're looking at, right? If the cleavage we're looking at, which is most of my fellow panelists are looking at, is the cleavage between Hindus and Muslims in our society, there's absolutely no question, as Yogendra pointed out, that he has proved to be a divisive figure and a divider. But I think that what is curious to me, at least, traveling a little bit in Uttar Pradesh, is that division is offset by what seems to be a certain amount of consolidation across caste lines among at least a section of the Hindus. That's what we saw in 2014. So he is sort of, in some ways, he's this unifying figure, just in purely electoral terms, but in larger national terms, he's clearly been a divisive figure. I would also sort of say that I would quickly say that there is a difference, I think, between him in 2014 and 2019. I thought between 2014 and 2017 there was much to criticize, but he had not really, in my view, let things loose to a point where there was no ambivalence.
Time's
Since 2017, that ended.
All right. Well, let's just get into some of the points made by all of you and into this debate. Let's talk about what happened today. And Yogendra Yadav, I'll take this to you. We had this unprecedented sight of the Prime Minister turning up at the BJP headquarters today, where the media then speculated that a press conference was finally going to happen. It was a press conference, except it was Mr. Amit Shah's press conference. The PM sat next to him silently and deflected questions that were directed to him onto the party president. What did you make of this? Because there has been a lot of criticism he's faced for not doing a no-holds-barred press conference, and yet there was something different about his tone and the way he tried to come across today. What did you think?
I wasn't there, but I just felt, number one, the word unprecedented is very important. At the end of 5-year regime, what is unprecedented? The fact that he's facing a press conference, that he's sitting
in the press room,
speaking in the press room. I mean, should it be unprecedented for democratic leaders? And second, if it was that, let's say, even at the fag end of his 5-year tenure, just one day before the final phase of polling of the last election, even then he doesn't inform the press and say, all right, now for 1 hour I'll take questions. Not even that. So what does it tell you? It tells you about a prime minister who doesn't want to face questions, who knows that questions are such that he won't be able to answer them.
Well, Shantanu had his hand up. Shantanu, yes?
I'm saying I don't understand this fixation with press conference. I'm saying you need a communication from the Prime Minister. I have never seen in last 30 years a Prime Minister as communicative as Narendra Modi. Be the usage of social media, which everyone, including Rahul Gandhi, is a follower. Giving interviews to news agencies, to media channels.
Yes. That's one-way communication.
Taking multiple rallies, reaching out to students. I'm saying, tell me between Narendra Modi, Amit Shah and party spokesman, which question is not answered in the last 5 years?
Well, why
You ask every question. If you have a fixation, no, I want to hear this statement from Modi's mouth and
why
Modi's
shouldn't
voice
the
and
Prime
Modi's
Minister
intonation.
answer questions?
That's just a fixation.
The
then.
President of the
Which
United
question has
States.
not
I am
asked?
sorry for
Between
anybody.
all channels, all interviews, which one question which is not asked? Tell me one question which is not asked.
For anyone who thinks a free press and the press is right to ask its leadership questions in a democracy is a quote fixation, needs to revisit. You need to revisit your definition of democracy.
Channels, if some particular channel didn't get interviews because of low TRPs, that's the problem of the channel.
Stop yelling. Stop yelling. Mr. Modi has done one-way speaking. His Mann Ki Baat is him. It's scripted. He has done nothing that is spontaneous. A Prime Minister of India. We deserve somebody we can ask questions to every day. The idea of citizenship power is growing across the world. It's growing in this country. We have 1,000 questions. We want to ask him. We want it to be open-ended. We want it to be unscripted. We do not want an Akshay Kumar Modi strolling on green lawns telling us about mango eating.
A lot of people like it.
No, I am sorry.
A lot of people like it.
One second, Rajat had a point here. Rajat, why come and sit on the stage and then just turn and say, well, the party president will answer the questions?
Well, if
why
you
not
see
just
the
take them on?
if you see the context of this meeting that happened, he was there to meet and greet the party workers who've been working alongside him for the past 3 months or so. And then when Amit Shah ji, the party president, came in and he did...
This was not meant to be for party workers. This was meant to be for the Indian...
No, please understand. I mean, either you
well,
have the
that's
information
even more
or you
of
don't
a
have the
shame.
information.
Let him finish.
Okay, so
that's
this
a shame then if it
please,
wasn't for the people.
First of all, he came in there and he clearly stated that this is a party forum and the party president is here, and the basic principles of the party is such, when the party president is there and is ready to answer the questions, he will answer, and he is answering. Had there been a question which Amit Shah ji, who's the party president, would have felt the Honorable Prime Minister to answer, he would have answered. I mean, when he is capable enough, because all of these questions were around elections, and he being the party president was there, present there to answer.
Did ask the Prime Minister.
See,
One or
measuring
two journalists
optics
did.
doesn't go by.
He
Your party
diverted
has
those
its
to
own
Amit Shah.
organization,
Why?
has its own way of going about things. You might like it, you might not like it. That is your prerogative. Coming to the second point about these press conferences, actually I agree, is what kind of fixation. You are trying to belittle all of these journalists who went ahead and interviewed the Prime Minister. This clearly means you are trying to belittle them. They had an opportunity, hour-long opportunity to ask him the questions. They asked every sort of questions. You keep tagging him, it's scripted, it's not scripted, whatever. Are you questioning the credibility of these journalists?
The questions were given to the PM in advance.
Just come out and say that all of these journalists, ABP, India TV, this, that, everybody is all
but then
has
why
been
not have
sold
a press
out.
Conference?
No. What happens? What cacophony happens in the press conference?
Nothing happens.
What does it?
Why does the president of the United States do a press conference? Why does the Prime Minister of Britain do a press conference?
By saying that journalists indulge into cacophony, he's belittling the journalists.
No, so I'm asking. No, it was
Pawan,
unique thing about press conferences.
May I be allowed to speak?
Yeah, Pawan.
No, you can't have a captive media and do your Mann Ki Baat even today. Now, there was no teleprompter. Maybe he was uncomfortable without a teleprompter. We've seen all the teleprompters and all the scripts of questions, answers, minor details, commas, everything is scripted. So, we want a Prime Minister who needs to engage with people. How else do people ask questions? Through the media. Media is the bridge between the people and the Prime Minister. You want to do
other democratic means for not
just... Let me respond to what she's asked me. I didn't interrupt, so please have the... So, ठीक है, आज आप press conference में आए, आपने जवाब नहीं दिया. This is the first and hopefully the last press conference where the Prime Minister doesn't answer. Modi है तो मुमकिन है, obviously.
Well, Sadanand, as a journalist, I mean, look, world leaders in democracies take questions in press conferences all the time.
With all due respect, I mean, I think Shantanu's point is ludicrous. One of the bright, shining lines between an autocracy and a democracy is the right that the media has to question a leader and question the leader sometimes in hostile terms. Now that a lot of it was scripted.
Oh, a lot of it
what
scripted.
you
You know
need,
everything. Come on.
everybody communicates. Xi Jinping communicates. Putin communicates. Every person who leads any country communicates. So the idea of putting in his Twitter feed and Mann Ki Baat and calling him a great communicator, that may well be true, but that is not how democracies operate. So by moving away from this norm, which we expect, we certainly see this in the advanced democracies, I think that is a step back, it's a step backward, and it's certainly something that we should question.
Farah?
Yeah, I want to just say, you know, this entire this from 2014, what we've seen is singular disrespect for the media as well. So you've seen attempts to squash media, bully media, buy media. So now you have what people on, you know, loosely call Godi media, which is a bot media, because it's this fundamental lack of respect for the basics of our democracy, which is a free media is a critical pillar on which that democracy stands. It creates transparency in the functioning of a government. It is disrespect for media and disrespect for democracy that we see in this.
Before I move on to another aspect of his legacy, Yogendra Yadav, doesn't that also then speak volumes about the media itself? You know, there is, maybe Mr. Modi has a certain sort of contempt for the media, and he wants to deal with it its own way. But what does it tell you about us as journalists and as the fourth pillar? Have we
I wouldn't comment so much on the journalists, but because I make the difference between journalists and media. Sadly, what we have witnessed in the case of media in India in the last 4 years or so is one of the darkest moments of Indian media. Yes, Mr. Modi's team supplied scripts, and we actually have now seen the scripts. So what are we talking about? The question is, why did the media houses accept those scripts? Why were they pretending? Why could they at least not write that these questions were supplied to us? So yes, of course, the media has been complicit in it. And I just want to say to both my friends, friends, we are in the danger of forgetting one word. Please remember that. The word is called accountability. And yes, I'm obsessed about that word because that word is the very essence of democracy. And what this Prime Minister has escaped is accountability. Absolutely. When I decide which questions I wish to answer, in which sequence and at what time, that's not examination. It's something else, but it's not examination. Communication, yes, but one-way communication does not define a democracy.
Or
and why obsessed with Mr. Modi? Because he is obsessed with himself, because his party is obsessed with him, because this government is nothing but him. So who else do you ask?
Who else do you obsess with?
Yogendra Yadav ji, you just mentioned about accountability, and that too you expect from a media houses who have in the past been exposed for something as heinous as doing Neera Radia tapes. You expect accountability from them. You think that they are the torch bearers of honesty and truth in this country, and the public who has been repeatedly and repeatedly
bribe somebody?
Lovely. So what's the argument?
Media houses, journalists, very reputed journalists, Nidhi, you know it very well. Let us not do name calling here.
What does that have to do with Mr. Modi having a press conference?
No, I'm saying the media needs to introspect. That's not the media that this nation wants.
That's a separate issue. No, one second. Rajat Sethi has a point.
I'm touching the hornet's nest.
No, you're not. Let me tell you something. You are absolutely right.
I came here prepared because of this attack.
One second.
Collective attack.
There's no attack.
I
just want to tell you that you're actually right. The media. Let me just ask a question.
Accountability.
I promise you. Go ahead.
As a voter of this country, I do not expect any accountability from media houses which are sold. Number one. Number two, accountability is measured. No, please, sir. Accountability is constantly measured by the Prime Minister going and asking for votes every year, year after year. And he has been getting mandates, unprecedented mandates, historically, which we have never seen.
So he can't be questioned.
Sheer love of people.
He can't be questioned.
He is accountable to the public. He is not accountable to the media houses. Especially those media houses who have sold the entire credibility at the altar of doing all these, all these back channel discussions that they do, and the kind of money that exchanges hands. I'm saying these loud and clear. There is no accountability that the media houses can expect if they don't course correct what they stand for in this country. They need to do a deep cleansing if you have to come up and rise as the fourth pillar. Nidhi, they need to do
why can't the PM just do an
thorough
open
cleansing? There have to be many more ethical people who need to join journalism.
Prime Minister do an open press conference?
Yes, absolutely. Non-ethical people cannot demand accountability from this country, from the Prime Minister of this country, whose whole life is open book. Every everybody knows exactly what
No,
he does.
his- no,
he is
I'm
always
sorry.
on
We
the
don't
radio.
even know his
Open
degree.
government.
We don't even know his degree. What open book
you
are you
don't
talking
know
about?
the word.
Do you know the degree?
I know, of course I
Out
know.
with
The
degree.
country knows.
Where is the degree? High Court brings a stay on the degree. What are you talking about?
there
You
is-
don't give
there
us
is
responses to
elitist-
RTIs. Who
Sir, there
travels
is
with
an
him on
elitist-
aircraft? Which are
there
the
is-
industrialists?
there
We
is
want
a-
to know. What
there is a very
accountability are you
deep-
talking about?
Sir, I
It's
know
very
what
easy
is
to
it is
blame the
hurting
media.
you. Sir, I know
Where
what
is the
is hurting you.
accountability? Where is the response to
Pawan
our
ji,
RTI?
you asked me a
कौन
question, let me
उद्योगपति थे
answer
जो
it.
उनके साथ हवाई जहाज में जाते हैं विदेश में?
मुझे
Taxpayers' money. No, no, no. Where is that RTI? We don't get any response.
There is something
Enough
very
of this
interesting
bhashan
happening
on
here. I want to ask Sadanand about that.
Accountability मैंने
Coming
नहीं
from
बोला.
you.
Guys, one
Accountability
second.
came in from
आप दे
somebody
रहे हैं
else.
भाषण accountability
मैं तो
का।
accountability
क्यों आप
बोल रहा हूँ,
लोग
मैं
सब
सिर्फ
छोड़
ये
के
कह रहा हूँ,
boycott कर रहे हैं
accountability की बहस
आप मीडिया को
ऐसे
खरीदते चले जा रहे
irresponsible
हैं
media
और गाली
houses
देते
नहीं
हैं
कर
उस मीडिया
सकते
को जो आपको
हैं।
आईना
जायज
दिखाता
बात
है।
करी तो कड़वी
जो
लग
आपको
रही है।
आईना
एक minute,
दिखाता है।
guys, one second. Sadanand, what
आप
is
आईने से
there is
डरते
a
हैं।
sense of
Again,
deja
you
vu
are
here.
scared of a
Okay,
mirror.
Pawan, one second.
Again,
There is a
this is-
sense of deja vu here because this is exactly what Donald Trump does, right? The media he doesn't like is sold out, it's biased, it's fake news, and that's the New York Times, the Washington Post, etc., etc. And it's a very similar
No,
narrative
there's
that's
actually
playing
very
out here.
different because even though Trump may say all these things, he addresses open press conferences where there
That's
are
true.
hostile questions from journalists who he doesn't like.
went to the New York
He
Times
has given
editorial
several
board.
interviews to
Yeah.
the New York Times. So he may make these sort of undignified noises that no one in the journalism community likes, but there is nobody who can say that he does not put himself in front for scrutiny by those very journalists. He does that over and over. So one, that's one very big difference. Secondly, coming back to Rajat's point, and I hope we can disagree about this without yelling. Basically, what he is sort of coming to is whatever it is, it's a form of governance, but it is not traditional democracy. This is what you have in authoritarian states. This is what you have with strongmen, where the only legitimacy that counts, the only legitimacy is the legitimacy of the connection directly with the people. Any other intermediate organizations, whether it's the role of the media, whether it's the role of the courts, whether it's any other institution that is set up in a democracy to check the concentration of power is immediately delegitimized, and that is what he is doing. He is delegitimizing.
Let me
the
get Rajat
fourth
to
estate.
respond to that, and then I'll come to Yogendra Yadav.
We have always been ascertaining far too much power to a specific set of coterie. That's what I'm challenging. Okay, what I'm saying is that a Dainik Jagran journalist should have had equal voice, so to say, power as compared to people who belongs to the Latins. That's what I have been trying to say. But that parity was never there in the first place. There was a constant, over-empowering of a certain specific set of journalists in this country, which became the whole nemesis. And this has been, captured. This is a phenomenon not just in India.
But like he
There have
said,
been
But
books
Rajat,
that is
that
what
wasn't your
Donald
point
Trump says to
originally.
the American
It's a
media,
global
Rajat.
phenomenon.
That was not
Donald
your point
Trump gives
originally. Your
interviews
point was
to
that
the
the
New York
media is
Times, the
discredited.
same media he calls
We're talking about
fake.
press conferences, not one. So otherwise,
no.
if you say that he's
He's
talking
done
to
interviews.
various news channels, he's talked on a one-on-one
No,
basis.
so
then
no,
let us not
it's
compare
not
to
about
Trump.
one-on-one.
See, please
He-
understand.
Donald Trump does
My
press
point
conferences
is
too,
people
where he
and the
takes questions
collective
from the
wisdom
very
of this
media he
country
hates.
has to have primacy over any specific set of coterie who is historically
afraid
been
to take
empowered
questions from
just because
everybody?
of the back channel dealing that they are
Is
capable of
he
doing.
afraid to take questions
No,
from
he's not
everybody?
afraid. He
Yeah,
takes it
Maybe
directly
I
from the
need to
people that
respond,
matter,
please.
from the
Not
Janta.
interrupting doesn't mean I
Okay,
don't
one
get
second.
it.
Yogendra Yadav had his hand up. One second. Yogendra.
I just wanted to say 2 or 3 things. One is, it's absolutely right. There was a huge difference between elite, empowered English media of a certain kind. I've always said in this country, English media represents a mix of arrogance and ignorance. I've said that in your studio as well. And others were disempowered. So here comes Mr. Modi, levels it all by denying every opportunity to everyone. How wonderful leveling. No one has any opportunity to talk to him. The whole thing has been leveled. That's one argument. The second argument is that how can we be accountable to media because the media is so corrupt. So, no accountability, no answers. Who am I accountable to? To the people. What is that judged by? The election. This is, incidentally, there are books on that. I can, gift you some of those books. This is called electoral authoritarianism. This is what Mr. Putin practices. This is what is happening in Turkey. And this is exactly what Mr. Modi is driving this country towards, which is a denial of democracy. And one final point. My friend says he's come prepared. I just hope he's not come prepared to disrupt the conversation. This is one of the few occasions where we can speak
me? I'm
without
just raising my finger politely.
Please, no, your finger has been
No,
very
but you
polite. Your
do not
voice has
personally
not
attack
been.
me,
Let us
Yogendra ji.
not
You are a senior
distract.
most person Why would you attack
in that
I
case,
need- I
if you
need
are
to
senior,
know-
please
You are senior,
understand what I'm saying.
I didn't say I'm senior. I said you are senior.
That's why I'm saying you कुछ उपदेश दे रहा हूँ आपको.
हाँ जी बताइए
आवाज मत
उपदेश ही
उठाइए,
दीजिए
argument
आपने जिंदगी
कीजिए.
भर उपदेश ही दिए हम लोगों को
अब आपने senior
I know the
कहा
show
ना.
is called The Big Fight, but we
Argue
don't have
मत
to
कीजिए.
literally, we don't have to translate that
personal
literally.
attack नहीं होना
raise
चाहिए.
your
That,
voice.
and I agree with that. I think,
है.
yeah, as long as
मैं
it,
तो
it,
नहीं
argument.
no, I don't want to move on to another
केंद्र विषय
aspect
कुछ
of
और
Mr.
है.
Modi's legacy,
disrupt
because it's
कर
not
रहे हैं
just
सारी
about his
conversation.
relationship
So
with
please
the
don't
media.
participate in his
It's not just
disruptions.
about his relationship with the media, but it's also what
great
Farah spoke
disruptors.
about in the
Why do you
beginning.
get into this?
What she sees as sort of his divisive legacy, particularly with Muslims, for example. Now let's talk about Pragya Thakur for a moment. Pawan Khera. Today the Prime Minister did speak very strongly on Pragya Thakur, and he said, I will not forgive Pragya Thakur for what she said on Mahatma Gandhi. Now, is that strong enough, or do you think it needs to be followed up with action such as throwing her out of the BJP?
Sitting next to him at the so-called mythical press conference, Amit Shah says, Pragya Thakur represents our satyagraha. Those were the words, not my words, Amit Shah's words, against the bogey of terror, Bhagwa terror. Now, if Pragya Thakur and satyagraha can be used in the same breath, do you think the Prime Minister's criticism of Pragya Thakur is strong enough? The answer lies in the comments made by Amit Shah. The fact that you give her a ticket, the fact that all your leaders go and campaign for her, the fact that she attacks Hemant Karkare and it doesn't really affect Mr. Prime Minister, then she goes on to almost attack Gandhi and kill him once again. This lip service won't help. The Prime Minister should have acted day before yesterday.
Shantanu, do you want to take that on?
I'm saying we have
Was giving
seen
a ticket to Pragya Thakur a mistake?
We have seen various sellers from all the party candidates, be it Navjot Singh Sidhu, be it Manishankar Iyer, be it Shashi Tharoor, and on some Rahul Gandhi spoke, on some Rahul Gandhi didn't. So I think Prime Minister coming on one statement on an MP out of so many MPs fighting on the BJP ticket, he came very strong. What Amit Shah spoke is before that statement.
There is one father of the nation.
What
is
Amit
all
Shah
that I
spoke
want to
is
remind
before
you.
that statement, they backed their candidate that we are putting the victim of a theory of Bhagwa terror, which are cooked by Congress meticulously along with the bureaucrats, and against the candidate who cooked the story.
But is it enough? Is it enough for him to say that he
I'm
doesn't
saying
agree with her
whatever
comments?
he would have done, he would say, is it enough, right?
No.
He
No,
If he had
throwing
thrown
for
her
one
out of the
candidate
BJP,
enough.
people
for
would
a
have
single
applauded.
candidate, he came out, so many candidates spoke so many things from all the parties.
Ma'am,
For a
the
single
father of the
candidate,
nation
he
is just
came
one,
out,
not
the
so
Prime
many
Minister of the
fathers of the
country
nation.
came out that I will never forgive the statement. What is most
Farah,
strong?
This
Farah.
represents the RSS thinking, full stop. And therefore, the Prime
Farah
Minister
Naqvi.
can only say something against it. He won't do anything against it.
Look, this is one thing that the divisive politics of Narendra Modi has done. It's reduced even potentially civilized debates into shouting matches. And I think that the biggest problem with public discourse, including about Pragya Thakur, is an apology saying, I don't agree with her statements. I'm sorry, Mr. Modi on the 1st of April in his Vardha speech laid the groundwork for Pragya Thakur's candidature from Bhopal. That was the speech in which he said, Hindu, 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 are you not angry? Are you not angry? And if you're not, you should be angry. He was provocative, he was rabble-rousing, he was laying the groundwork for Pragya Thakur to enter the fray. So this idea of an apology is frankly, it's a bit silly at this point. The thing that he has done, that his politics has done, and I hear this unfortunately from Rajat as well, every argument is us and them. It's good media versus bad media. It's this versus Lutyens. It's somebody versus Khan market. It's Muslims versus Hindu. It's everything is pitted against. It is a very binary form of public discourse. In a country as great and diverse as India, you simply cannot have that kind of us and them rhetoric, which is something we used to laugh at the former US president about when he coined this phrase, this great, either you're with us or you're against us.
Or a good
That
terrorist
is-
versus a bad terrorist.
So
Rajat.
this is, yeah.
Or a Hindu
And
terrorist
all
or a
I'm
Hindu
sorry,
terrorist.
Pragya Thakur's candidature has been a blot on Indian democracy. This is a prime minister and a government that has never hesitated to call out Muslim terrorists, but when it comes to somebody who is a non-Muslim, you suddenly find her fit to enter the hallowed halls of this country's parliament, a blot on democracy, and her candidature should be withdrawn after her comments on Mahatma Gandhi.
Rajat Sethi, did Pragya Thakur just go too far on this?
Of course, and there's no doubt about it. Anybody who is even questioning our forefathers who sacrificed their lives, for the independence of this country cannot be condoned, supported at any cost. That goes for Pragya Thakur, that goes for Rahul Gandhi also, because he tried to belittle Veer Savarkar by calling him coward. That's the level of word that Rahul Gandhi used for a person who has spent 11 years in cellular jail. And you know, नहीं मुझे लगा shadow थी सर, sorry.
आपको shadows ही क्यों दिखते हैं साहब?
नहीं, मुझे डर लगा कि सर आप लोग ज़्यादा aggressive ना हो जाए.
प्रधानमंत्री इंडिया के shadow से डरते हैं, आप हमारे shadow से डरते हो. ये डर हटा दीजिए, ये डर ही तो हटाना है हमें. अब आप shadow से डरेंगे? कमाल है साहब. ये shadow boxing बंद करिए ना.
So what happened was, Nidhi, Indira Gandhi, the former prime minister in 1966 at the death of Savarkar ji, this is what she had to say, and this is courtesy Vikram Sampath. She, quote, "It removes from our midst a great figure of contemporary India. His name was a byword for daring and patriotism. Mr. Savarkar was cast in the mold of a classical revolutionary, and countless people drew inspiration from him." And what Rahul Gandhi does is the same as versus them,
but
that we are holier
how
than
is the
thou.
same as that?
The problem is
that as one
Pawan
second.
will never call it. Pawan will never call it, and that's the hypocrisy. That's
To
the
call it,
hypocrisy.
to call
And that's the hypocrisy.
Okay, one second.
For God's sake,
Stop remove Indira Gandhi. Remove the photo of Indira Gandhi. Remove the photo.
One second, guys, one second.
Photo of Indira Gandhi.
Mahatma Gandhi, he is the father of the nation, but this does not give you the authority to start belittling every freedom fighter. Ma'am, please go spend one day. Go spend one day in Kala Pani, then we will talk. He spent 11 years in Kala Pani. No,
But Rajat, calm down. One second. I am saying
with this chauvinism of yours, the way you made a face on Veer Savarkar, that's not how debates should be, ma'am. You should at least have some respect of a person who went to jail. And no, ma'am, you were making a very bad, a frowny looking face on Veer Savarkar. Whenever it comes, why is there this level of disgust coming from the elite?
But I have a serious question. Is a criticism of Veer Savarkar the same as saying that Gandhi's assassin is a patriot? I mean, this at the end of the day, you're calling you're justifying his assassination. You are not. I'm saying Pragya Thakur is.
No, I just said.
But you are comparing freedom fighters. She's not. You compared when you brought in Savarkar.
I just said I made a simple point. What Pragya Thakur has said from the top leadership till the people on the ground, they've all disagreed with it.
Why is she still in the BJP?
She will. The disciplinary action. Let the committee respond. They will ask her questions. That's how freedom of democracy in freedom of speech works.
Okay, Sadanand has had his hand up. What does that tell you about Modi's politics?
I don't want this, we can't allow this debate to get hijacked into something as ludicrous as Savarkar versus Gandhi. It's an absurd comparison. Obviously, Gandhi is the father of the nation and we shouldn't go beyond that.
And you can disrespect anyone else. What kind of argument is that?
He's not saying that.
Disrespect or
What kind of argument is that?
that?
Apart from Gandhi, we will disrespect binaries. What kind of funny argument is that?
Shantanu, let Sadanand speak.
Said that
And we will call him a coward.
is not
What
a
kind
debate
of argument is
about you cannot deflect what was said by Pragya Thakur about Gandhiji by bringing up this other thing. That is pure deflection and nothing else. Point number one. Let me please finish my point before interrupting. The second point is that I think on this question of Pragya Singh Thakur, it's like we're experiencing as a country a form of collective insanity. I mean, the fact that people are hung up on this idea of the term Hindu terror, I mean, it just doesn't even make sense. Like, if I call someone an Italian mafia don, that doesn't mean I've said that all Italians are mafia dons. If a person who happens to be Hindu and happens to be motivated by ideological Hindu causes does take to terrorism, obviously that person is a Hindu terrorist. Similarly, a Baghdadi from the Islamic State is an Islamic terrorist. Why can we not discuss something that is just so commonsensical and so basic without getting into some hysterical claims about smearing an entire community? No one has and no one is smearing an entire community.
Yogendra Yadav, what is then this though? I mean, the Pragya Thakur example, along with other things that have happened. For instance, when Jayant Sinha decided to go and garland lynching convicts, not just accused, but those who had been convicted. The Prime Minister's silence was the thing that stood out the most in these last 5 years. And he chose at certain points to break that silence with some sort of very generic statements on, this is very bad, it shouldn't happen. But nobody seemed to be listening because the cow vigilantism continued, the lynchings continued. There is hard data out there about how hate crimes have gone up 91% in the last 5 years compared to the previous 5 years. So what does that tell you about his politics?
It's not merely forgetfulness. It is not inattention. It is not even uncivility. It is strategic. That's the problem, that the entire thing, all kinds of incidents would take place in this country. Prime Minister would maintain diplomatic silence. After 1 week, he would say some golden, nice, lovely thing picked up from Bible or Gita, and sort of that's the end of it. Now, this is a classic game he has played just too often. Pragya Thakur is not a person who happens to have said something ridiculous yesterday. She has said it throughout her career. Giving her a ticket was a strategic decision motivated by the fact that this would lead to lots of TV debates. And in those TV debates, whoever loses, whoever wins, Hindu, Muslim would be uttered every time. As soon as the word Hindu and Muslims are uttered 50 times in a half-hour debate, Prime Minister's purpose is served. So this is strategic. And the other thing I wanted to say...
Then why would he try to distance himself from her comments like he did today, saying I won't be able to forgive her?
That's what he's always done. He's done his...
Or is there a limited sort of benefit to this kind of politics?
No. You see, the classic strategy is let something happen, let the damage be caused, let it be completed. When the job is completed, quietly come and say, हाँ ये तो बहुत अच्छी चीज़ नहीं थी, ऐसा तो नहीं होना चाहिए, धर्म, राष्ट्र, अच्छा सा कुछ dialogue. I mean, this is a classic thing. I mean, why were we taken in by this? This has been done all over the world. It's a standard technique that's done. The other point I wanted to make was, let's not forget about the dismantling of many things that this nation could take pride in. I just wanted to say something, Nidhi, on this show, now that this election is coming to an end. I have been some kind of a self-appointed ambassador of Indian democracy. I have given maybe dozens of lectures all over the world defending Indian democracy, and this was not Congress democracy, this was post Mr. Vajpayee. I had taken questions on 2002, 1984, and to the world I had spoken and said, for all our faults, this is a democracy that can teach the world a lesson or two. On diversity, for all our failures, I had said, the world will have to follow the Indian model of diversity management. Today, honestly, I do not know what to say, and that for any nationalist should be an ultimate point to ponder. I do think my friends will ponder about it. I don't want them to respond right now. Just go back and think, does your country look bigger, better today than it did 5 years ago?
It does.
Rajat?
Yugen ji makes nice speeches, sounds like as if he has really taken up on himself to save the democracy. But I was really pained that throughout the past 30 minutes, he did not utter a single word of the kind of murdering of democracy happening in West Bengal. Had he come up, and I frequently watch a lot of his debates, etc., he just does not address the body politic, the political culture of West Bengal ever.
Because this debate is on Mr. Modi's legacy.
No, that's fine. But he's talking about democracy.
Say something.
He's talking about a
but
very
the
large
subject is
perspective
Narendra Modi's
democracy,
legacy. So
going to
why
foreign
would he talk about
countries,
Mamta?
making lecture of Indian democracy and diversity. Of course, he within the country should have come out and made strong statements, and he's part of a political party as well. He should have been the first to come and condemn it in no uncertain terms. No if then, what is the difference between him and the others that he supposedly is criticizing here?
Since you have so much interest in what I have to say,
Yeah.
can I invite you and all the viewers who are watching it right now, go to my Twitter. About 2 or 3 days ago, I had said, expecting Mamata Banerjee to save democracy is a joke. Please go and check. थोड़ा आप काम करके आया करो ना यार जब आते हो थोड़ा पढ़ के आया करो
Debate about Modi. Why is he
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to bring Bengal into this because it is a debate about Mr. Modi. But Shantanu, it comes to that point about the Prime Minister's silence. And, if he's serious about not forgiving Pragya Thakur, she shouldn't be in the BJP. She shouldn't be your candidate from Bhopal.
See, I think Prime Minister have already spoken very strong words. There is a procedure in every party that the disciplinary committee will look into it, and whatever will come out. As I told you, party candidates from all parties made ridiculous remarks, and I'm saying every party, some parties reacted on it, some parties not reacted on it. I'm saying what can be more strong than on one particular candidate, Prime Minister came out and gave a very strong statement that I will never forgive in my life.
And that's it. And then what?
That's it. Everything will not happen in SMS and WhatsApp, right? It will happen right now. It's almost like a fixation for press conferences.
Do you think Pragya Thakur deserves to be in Parliament, personally?
I'm saying yes. Why not? Why not? I'm saying I can quote ridiculous statement from Shashi Tharoor. I'm saying Shashi.
There's a
Do you
difference
think Shashi Tharoor is supposed to be in
Shashi
Parliament?
Tharoor is not a
Do you
terror
think
accused, firstly
Shashi
standing
Tharoor should be
trial
in
for
Parliament?
terrorism.
Navjot Singh Sidhu should be in
There's a
Assembly.
difference between ridiculous statements and calling Gandhi's assassin a
I'm saying
patriot.
you can compare. Some can be
Do you think
ridiculous
Mahatma
for
Gandhi
you.
is
Some can be
anti-national?
ridiculous for me. I'm saying we all have.
Do you think
Ma'am
Mahatma Gandhi
laughed
was
at Veer Savarkar,
anti-national?
I don't know for what reason. Because she has not read Veer
Again,
Savarkar.
distraction towards
No,
Veer
but why are you
I'm
talking
saying
about
you're
Savarkar?
distraction.
the question.
I'm saying.
Do you think Mahatma Gandhi was an anti-national?
So what kind of statement is that? Who
I'm
will say that?
asking you.
Who will say that? Who will say that?
Now
What
you're
kind
saying
of
who you want
to
now
say.
you
She said
are
she was a
now you are
patriot.
creating Nidhi a
Pragya
binary.
Thakur is clearly saying that.
Now you are trying to create a
see in the
binary.
parliament.
Who will say?
Because she did. She said that his
That's why
killer was a patriot.
everybody from the people, from Prime Minister disagreeing from a statement.
But you still think she
you
should
want
be
her
an MP?
right now with this statement. That way, I'm saying if you see in election campaign, half of the leaders from all the parties will gone from their parties.
Is it the same?
If that's the way
when
decision will be
everyone
made.
makes outrageous statements, is it the same?
Nidhi, why are we focusing so much attention on Sadhvi Pragya just because she happens to be in the fray right now? If you really want to assess Mr. Modi's legacy, please also look at 2017. He appointed somebody who was known primarily for hate mongering as the chief minister of such an important and volatile
I mean, you know nothing
state.
about Yogi Adityanath. Go to
let
Facebook.
me-
Last 5 days,
let
one of
me
my videos got
finish
10 lakh views
speaking.
about Yogi
Let me
Adityanath.
speaking.
Kind of a big
Have
quiz.
you been to?
very
You know nothing about Yogi Adityanath.
Let her
Whatever
finish. Let her
I know,
finish.
let
I'll come back to you.
Okay, the rest
I'm
you
saying
can
don't come
speak.
with limited knowledge.
You can
Don't
speak
come
as
with
much
limited
as you
knowledge on
want.
the
You can
channel.
have
You
a
don't know
lecture
nothing about
on
Yogi
Yogi
Adityanath.
He has the right to come
Nothing
with
about
Yogi
Yogi
Adityanath.
Adityanath.
license to silence
Keep
everyone
quiet.
else.
क्या है भाई?
I'm his biographer.
क्या तरीका है भाई
That's fine.
आपका?
Shantanu, I'll come back to you. Shantanu, I will come back to you. I will come back to you guys. 1 second. Let Farah finish. Let Farah finish. Guys, come on.
Finish.
Let her finish. Let her finish. Let her
laugh at Veer
I am
Savarkar.
not
He doesn't know anything about
Shantanu,
Yogi
let her
Adityanath.
finish. Let her finish.
you
And I'll
sit
come
ये
back.
दोनों मिलकर हाउस करके हाईजैक करेंगे, हमें मत बुलाया कीजिए आप।
हद हो गई।
मत बुलाए सबको,
Farah,
इन्हीं दोनों को
Farah,
बुलाइए आप।
अभी क्या
Farah,
है?
please.
इन्हीं दोनों को
आवाज
बुलाइए
तो
आप।
आप ही की आ रही है सर सबसे।
तो आवाज
Farah,
उठानी पड़ेगी ना आप लोगों को।
अच्छा, guys, 1
अरे
second.
उनकी बारी खत्म हो, बोल दीजिएगा उसके बाद।
Okay, Farah, finish.
इतना इम्पेशेंट क्यों हो गए आप? इंटॉलरेंट हैं आप।
Farah.
देखिए, Yogi Adityanath in 2017 was an inflection point for many people who had given Mr. Modi a chance in 2014. They said, okay, this is actually not about development. This is actually about good old-fashioned RSS Hindutva politics. And that is why this man has been. Why are we so surprised that in this, it is natural. It is a path that is being followed. From Yogi Adityanath to come to Sadhvi Pragya, to me, is not in the least bit. In fact, from 2002 to come to Yogi Adityanath and to Sadhvi Pragya, none of this should surprise. This is the core of their politics. And I want to say that the Indian for years I studied abroad as well. I was the proudest Indian ever. Anything was said, my democracy was unassailable, my diversity was unquestionable, and our fault lines were, yes, they were there. What this politics, let me finish, has done, it's not just a politics built on fault lines. Great leadership requires you to heal those fault lines. This leadership has not only scratched, it has gouged the fault lines such that there are rivers of blood. There is so much division and hatred in this country today, thanks to
Those
the
are pretty
politics
strong words.
Yes, we are a more divided
Can I come
nation
in here?
today.
I just want
than we
Shantanu.
could
She's
have
had a good
imagined.
monologue
Yeah.
now.
Okay, one second.
Unimaginable what has
Okay,
happened.
Shantanu,
Farah,
Shantanu. So you've written the book on Mr.
Nidhi, this is the
Adityanath.
classic example of an ignorant Delhi intellectual. No, nothing about. I doubt she ever traveled to
I am
Lucknow or
sorry,
ever traveled
please
to
mind your language.
ever traveled to Gorakhpur. Just hear 2 YouTube videos, read New York Times, and use classy English. Just
अरे
malign
मैं तो
someone.
उत्तर प्रदेश
He is
की
in parliament
पैदाइश
from
हूँ
5
भाई साहब।
years.
आप
He is
कहाँ
in parliament
के
for
हैं?
5 terms,
मेरा
winning
तो
exponential
गाँव
margin.
यूपी में है,
In
आप
fact, when
कहाँ के
BJP
हैं?
was not winning in 2004 and 2009, he won with exponential margins. Go and see his popularity in Gorakhpur.
So?
His chief architect is a Muslim, one of the dean is a Muslim, half of the shop is given to Muslims. Just based on two electoral speeches, you just cast aspersion of a person who is a parliamentarian from last 19 years.
Please.
He has
अरे
asked
मैं तो
300
उत्तर
questions
प्रदेश की
till
लड़की
2017, but you have not
वो
spent time in
मेरी
Gorakhpur. Have
सरजमीन
you been to
है।
Gorakhpur? How many times have you
मुझे
been to
मत challenge करो।
Gorakhpur? Have you been to, how many
अरे
times have you
30
been to
साल
Gorakhpur?
दलित
You know
महिलाओं
nothing
के
about
साथ
Yogi
काम किया है भाई
Adityanath.
साहब।
See his
Shantanu,
parliamentary
आपकी
record,
तरह
see
नहीं।
question by question what he asked.
Is that why
condition
the
of IITs,
BJP lost the
condition of IIMs, he
Gorakhpur
got
bypoll?
AIDS.
Because his parliamentary record was so stellar.
वो मठ के भूत से हार गए थे गोरखपुर में बाई इलेक्शन।
Look, if you're going to make popularity
and
the
that
barometer
is not part of BJP.
of his record, has he not made hate speeches
क्या है
against
भाई साहब,
Muslims?
आपकी तरह
Shantanu,
बायोग्राफी नहीं लिखी।
has he not made hate speech?
Because with this half knowledge, because this half knowledge of two
Sadanand.
articles, you can't
One
even write.
thing. First of all, everybody has to treat everyone with respect. You can't decide that you can decide who can speak about what.
Based on a statement.
People
based
have
on a
she
statement.
has a right for her to her view. You
The-
cannot shut her
I'm
up. You
commenting-
express
I'm
your own
commenting
view.
that based
No,
on
you're
a view that he
interrupting.
expressed, it's
You
very
are
half knowledge.
interrupting.
Let to
Now you're
speak.
not letting me. You're interrupting.
This is ridiculous.
First
Why
point
don't
is
you go there and moderate?
now
What are you doing
he is
here?
allowed to
Why
think
don't
that
you go there
Yogi
and moderate?
Adityanath is the greatest invention on the planet since
नहीं,
sliced
ये
bread.
बदतमीजी तो
My
फैलाई है इन
view
लोगों ने।
is, and I think Farah is absolutely correct, and we shouldn't get away from this point, that until 2017, for most people who follow Indian politics and public life, Yogi Adityanath was considered as too incendiary even to occupy a junior ministership. So when he was made Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister, you may see this sort of grand whitewashing exercise going on, of which Shantanu is a part. But the fact is
come on.
that
No, this is not personal. No, this is not personal commenting. This is not personal commenting. Come
was
on.
a turning point
Don't
for
be
Indian
don't be
politics.
such a hypocrite on
Was
this channel.
a
Come on.
turning point for
hasn't made a
Indian
personal
politics,
comment about
and it's
you.
something that has been noticed quite dramatically. And if you look at how the Modi government is viewed internationally, this may give no joy to his supporters. But the fact is, March 2017 is the turning point for Mr. Modi internationally.
Well, you're talking about the international perception. Pawan, just to come in on that particular point, it's interesting that you brought that up, and I brought up the Time magazine cover in the beginning, because many years ago, I think it was 2012, when Dr. Manmohan Singh was on the cover of Time magazine and called the underachiever, the BJP held a press conference saying that, look, this proves our point that Manmohan Singh is a weak prime minister. Ravi Shankar Prasad did that press briefing. Pawan Khera, today the BJP seems quite touchy about this latest
As they
cover.
say, time की बात है. उस टाइम उनको शूट करता था, इस टाइम हमको शूट नहीं
You were
करता.
waiting with that one.
ये तैयार करके आप
But can I say something? I honestly think this obsession with which international magazine carries
agree,
what cover.
but the obsession
is-
comes from all sides.
As a matter of fact, I've observed the BJP has been more, I mean, today it so happens that it goes against them, but in most of the debates, BJP spokespersons are more interested in what what certificate they have got from IMF or some other place, and in fact I have to constantly remind them, bhai sahab jara is desh ka data bhi dekh lo, sirf bahar se mat laya karo.
Don't forget the world famous Kotler Award.
That's
The
right.
Kotler Award. Well, that
And
was
Kotler
another.
Award.
Pawan.
And can I just say one thing about Pragya Thakur? Actually, unlike all of you,
Don't call her Sadhvi. I'm so happy.
I do think she would be put in a dustbin.
You think she'll lose
I
her
do
seat?
think she would be
Well,
put
let's
in
see
a
what happens
dustbin.
on Thursday.
Not because of the things that you are worried about. You see, she's served her purpose. Now she's useless. Chilka hai. Ab to dustbin mein jayega hi jayega.
Pawan, and I'll come to everyone.
Coming
closing
back to the
comments, yeah.
obsession with the international audience, remember all the Madison Square Garden events, all the diaspora events. This man loves the galleries. He's least interested in governance, loves certificates from abroad. He has this obsession. America से certificate मिला, England से certificate मिला, Europe से certificate मिला. So, Time magazine, अब भले ये dismiss कर दें उसको, but their obsession has come back to bite them now. They are very worried about this Time magazine. You saw the trolls attacking Time. जिसने Time magazine का नाम कभी नहीं सुना, उसने सुन लिया और उसको attack करना शुरू कर दिया.
No, और बल्कि अटैक किस आधार पे किया तो अटैक
Let me ask Rajat about that.
for his nationality,
Okay, but Farah,
attack Tavleen for being his mother. I mean, this is what BJP trolls have done. It's
Rajat Sethi.
not an argument.
On that point that Sadanand made on the international image of Mr. Modi and India.
Sadanand ji made a sweeping statement there. He said that the entire international reputation of Modi ji has been impacted in 2017. I don't know how he's concluding to that
amazing
statement.
survey he has
I mean,
done,
you
I
need to qualify that how did he do a survey? Did he ask a lot of
I merely
international
said
leaders?
this is a turning
I mean,
point.
Please,
You can
number
go back
one.
and look
So
at the coverage
this is
in
your personal
every
opinion.
leading
Yeah,
international
we are all
publication. No,
sharing
it's
our
not.
personal
You
opinion.
can read
Those
the New
five
York Times, you
darling-
can read
those
the Wall
five
Street Journal,
darling
you can read the FT.
Interrupting me.
Let him finish.
You were
Let-
accusing
Let
Shantanu
Rajat
ji
finish.
just for that matter.
Okay,
Because
Rajat finish,
everybody is
Rajat
now
finish.
interrupting me.
Go ahead,
नहीं,
go
नहीं,
ahead.
चिल्ला नहीं रहा हूँ मैं सर, आप लोगों को आपका ये आईना दिखा रहा हूँ मैं।
Rajat, finish your
क्योंकि आप
point.
लोग ना हाउंडिंग करते हैं, जब
शांति,
बोल रहा है तो
शांति।
बोलने मत दो
आप ही
उसको।
से सीखें भाई,
बोलिए,
थोड़ा
बोलिए,
शांत हो
सीख
जाओ।
गए ना मतलब।
अच्छा, let him
थोड़ा
finish.
सावर तो
Let
भी
him
वीर
finish.
को
Let
सीख
him- Pawan,
जाइए।
Pawan, Pawan, just let him finish.
वीरता दिखाओगे तो आपको भी वीर
नहीं,
कहेंगे।
एक मिनट रुकिए, अब आप
थोड़ा
रुक जाइए।
धैर्य दिखाओ पहले।
पवन खेरा जी, आप
थोड़ा
रुक जाइए,
धैर्य
मैं
दिखाओ।
सम्मान से बोल रहा हूँ, आप
धैर्य
रुकिए।
दिखाओ, मैं भी
आप थोड़ा
आपको
रुकिए।
सम्मान से ही कह रहा हूँ, आपके असम्मान करेंगे उसके
देखिए,
बाद,
अब
ये
दूसरी
धमकी
चीज़
दे रहे
तो
हो। अब यहाँ आकर धमकी भी दोगे आप?
अरे तो सम्मान
आप
बोल
यहाँ
रहा हूँ
धमकी भी
भाई।
दोगे आप? कि अभी तक तो मैं सम्मान की
भाषा समझ
ये
नहीं।
क्या तमीज है आप
एक
लोगों
तो
में?
मैंने नहीं बोला यार।
Pawan, he's not threatening you. He's not threatening you. One second.
सम्मान से बोल रहा हूँ।
One second. Guys, I'll have to end the show then. Rajat, please let Rajat speak. No, Pawan, please. Pawan, please let Rajat
खान
speak.
मार्केट के लायक हैं, अपना वहीं पे
अरे आपको खान मार्केट के साथ क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
क्योंकि आप लोगों
Anyway,
का बात चल रहा है।
okay,
आप
guys.
अल्टरनेट बात नहीं सुन सकते। आप लोग अल्टरनेट बात नहीं सुन सकते हैं, तभी टोकते हैं।
Guys, 1 second. Let Rajat Sethi have his word, please. We just have a minute left. We just have a minute left. Let him say. Shant, please. I don't want to end it like this.
सरोजनी नगर मार्केट वर्सेस खान मार्केट
कितना
डिवाइड
अच्छा।
है?
सब कुछ आपके लिए कोटी है, सब कुछ आपके लिए
No. Pawan, please. All right. I have to end it.
आपके
Guys, I have to end the show. I have
तो
to.
कोई बात नहीं, हम भी हारे हैं,
Let him
बदतमीजी तो नहीं
speak.
करते
Let
ना
him
साहब।
speak.
पहले हारे थे हम।
Pawan, please let him
No, I
speak.
am sorry.
No, that's fine.
If they are losing an election doesn't mean they lose their patience.
No.
ये टिकट है, मैं तो बोलूंगा।
They lose their etiquette.
Okay, 1 second.
अरे
Can
हारो
we all
election,
count-
कोई बात
can we all
नहीं,
count
ठीक है,
to 5
ठीक
and
है।
just
Let
calm
me-
down,
let me
please. I
finish.
can't outshout
Let me
you.
make my
Let him
So you guys
finish.
are finished. What do you mean let me finish?
Anyway,
point,
Rajat,
Pawan
make
ji.
your
No,
point.
नहीं, I am
Rajat,
sorry.
make your
बॉस, ये पर्सनल अटैक खान मार्केट के लायक है, ये क्या तरीका है भाई?
इस पे बहस तो नहीं कर रहे ना
नहीं तो क्यों ये इस तरह से ऊंची आवाज में चिल्ला चिल्ला के डराएंगे लोगों को? या डराने आए हो?
Let us stick to the subject. Pawan, please.
देखिए, लिमिट नहीं क्रॉस होनी चाहिए इनकी तरफ से, वरना ये शो का कंटिन्यू करने का निधि कोई पॉइंट नहीं बनता है। कमिंग टू मोर सब्सटैंटिव पॉइंट, तो सदानंद जी's point I've addressed. Second is Farah ma'am's point. What she's tried to address is that whenever she was abroad, she studied there, and she made a point that yes, I used to talk about diversity of this country. You need to understand the absolutely gory riots have all happened under Congress regimes historically. You pick up
No one denies
Bhagalpur.
that,
No,
yeah.
please. Bodo riots, Muslim Bodo riots. Even in UPA was in power in Delhi, and there was an Assam government, Tarun Gogoi. The kind of riots they engineered just to win elections. Now, in Manipur, where I serve, the Chief Minister of Congress, the previous Chief Minister of Congress, he engineered attacks on himself just to polarize the Meitei and the Naga population. You know, India is not just about Delhi. This is what Shantanu was trying to suggest. You go down. You go
Okay,
to
I
different
have 30
states.
seconds,
You try
Farah,
to
you can
find out
respond.
where actual divisive
30
tricks and techniques of the Congress
So
party
what
are
would a
at ugly
second term
play.
for Narendra Modi mean for India? Farah, quickly.
Oh, I can't even contemplate it. I think it would be a disaster for our democratic institutions, a disaster for our unity. I want to respond very quickly to this. Communalism has been a staple of Indian politics. Nobody should deny that, and nobody is staying away from that. Except this communalism and this fault line is the core of the politics of this particular dispensation. That is the crucial difference. Communal riots, I mean, please, I'm sorry, 2002 still hangs over us, is still very much alive. Just the other day, Bilkis got an exemplary compensation
I have
from
to
the
wrap.
Supreme Court. So wait, I just want to finish and say, this kind of communalism that this party has unleashed, communal riots, no, far worse, everyday videotaped public spectacles of lynching to terrify people into silence. That is what communal riots have been replaced
I have to wrap
with.
it. Obviously, Mr. Modi's legacy is something that is dividing all of us on how, we all look at it. Whether he comes back for a second term or not, we will now know in less than a week from now. We'll see you then. Thank you to all our panelists for joining us. Thank you.